The crystal chandelier above table 7 cast dancing shadows across Margaret Chen's notepad as she approached the distinguished gentleman dining alone. At 23, she'd served countless wealthy patrons at the Azure Room, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, but something about this man made her pause mid-step. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His charcoal suit probably cost more than her annual salary, but it was the necklace, resting casually on the white tablecloth beside his wine glass, that made her blood run cold. "Your entree will be ready in approximately 12 minutes, sir," Margaret said. Her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. The man nodded without looking up from his phone. Typical. She'd learned that billionaires rarely made eye contact with staff. They existed in a different dimension, one where people like her were simply part of the furniture. But Margaret couldn't move. Her eyes were locked on that necklace. The delicate silver chain, the distinctive pendant, a crescent moon cradling a small diamond star. She knew every curve of that design. She'd traced it with her tiny fingers as a child, sitting in her mother's lap during happier times, before everything fell apart, before her mother disappeared 15 years ago. When Margaret was only 8 years old. Is there something else? The man's voice cut through her thoughts, cold, impatient. He still hadn't looked at her. Margaret's hand trembled as she pointed at the necklace. The words escaped before she could stop them. "Sir, that's my mother's necklace." The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. The man's head snapped up. His phone clattered onto the table. The color drained from his face so quickly that for a moment Margaret thought he might faint. His hand, which had been reaching for his wine glass, froze in midair before the glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood. The entire restaurant went silent. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward table 7, but Margaret barely noticed. She was staring at the man's face, watching recognition, fear, and something else, something darker, flash across his features. "What did you just say?" His voice was barely a whisper now, completely different from the imperious tone of moments before. Margaret's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She shouldn't have said anything. This was crazy. It couldn't possibly be the same necklace. There must be thousands like it, but she knew. Deep in her bones, she knew. "That necklace," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "Where did you get it?" The man, whose nameplate reservation she'd glimpsed earlier, read Richard Hawthorne, CEO Hawthorne Industries, stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor with a sound like a scream. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Who sent you here?" "Nobody sent me. I work here. I'm just a waitress. But that necklace belonged to my mother, Sarah Chen. She disappeared 15 years ago, and she was wearing that exact necklace the last time I saw her." Richard Hawthorne's face had gone from pale to gray. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Around them, other diners were whispering, pulling out phones. The maitre d' was rushing over, concern etched across his features. But Margaret couldn't look away from the necklace. Her mother's necklace, and from the expression on Richard Hawthorne's face, he knew exactly how he'd gotten it. The question was, why did the truth terrify him so much? "Miss Chen, is everything all right here?" Francois, the maître d', appeared at her elbow, his French accent thick with disapproval. His sharp eyes took in the shattered wine glass, the stained tablecloth, and the billionaire CEO who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Margaret opened her mouth, but no words came. What could she possibly say? That she'd just accused one of New York's most powerful men of… what exactly? Having her mother's necklace didn't make him a criminal. There could be a dozen innocent explanations, except his reaction wasn't innocent at all. "Everything's fine," Richard Hawthorne said, but his voice cracked on the last word. He grabbed the necklace from the table, his movements jerky and panicked, and shoved it into his jacket pocket. "Just a small accident with the wine. Nothing to worry about." "Perhaps we should move you to another table, Mr. Hawthorne," Francois suggested smoothly. "Let me arrange—" "No!" The word came out too sharp, too loud. Hawthorne cleared his throat, visibly trying to compose himself. "No, that won't be necessary. Actually, I'm not feeling well. I need to leave." "Cancel my order," he was running. Margaret could see it in every tense line of his body. This man, who probably owned half of Manhattan, was about to flee the restaurant like a scared animal. "Wait," Margaret said, stepping forward. Her hand shot out and grabbed his sleeve before she could think better of it. "Please, I need to know where you got that necklace." "My mother, she's been missing for 15 years. The police stopped looking after 6 months. That necklace is the only thing I have left of her. The only clue I've ever—" "I don't know what you're talking about." Hawthorne jerked his arm away from her grip. But his eyes, ice blue and haunted, told a different story. "You're mistaken. This necklace belonged to my late wife. I've had it for 20 years. "That's a lie." The words were out before Margaret could stop them. Professional suicide, probably, but she didn't care. "My grandfather made that necklace himself. It's one of a kind. He was a jeweler in Chinatown before he died. There's an inscription on the back of the pendant. 3 Chinese characters, my mother's name." The color that had started returning to Hawthorne's face drained away again. His hand went to his jacket pocket, clutching the hidden necklace through the fabric. "Miss Chen." Francois's voice had turned cold. "I think you should return to the kitchen, now." "But, now, Miss Chen." Margaret looked between the 2 men. Francois, her boss, who was already mentally calculating how much this scene was going to cost the restaurant, and Hawthorne, who looked like he might collapse at any moment. "I get off work at 11, Margaret said directly to Hawthorne, ignoring Francois entirely. "I'll be at the coffee shop on the corner, if you have any decency at all. If there's any chance you know what happened to my mother, you'll meet me there. Please." She didn't wait for a response. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, her legs shaking so badly she wasn't sure they'd carry her. Behind her, she heard Francois apologizing profusely to Hawthorne, offering complimentary meals, promising discretion. The kitchen doors swung shut behind her, muffling the dining room's buzz of gossip. Margaret leaned against the stainless steel prep counter, her breath coming in short gasps. Girl, what the hell just happened out there? Keisha, the other evening waitress, grabbed her shoulders. "Did you just go off on Richard Hawthorne?" "The Richard Hawthorne?" "I don't know," Margaret whispered. "I don't know what I just did," but she knew what she'd seen. The recognition in his eyes. The terror. The guilt. Richard Hawthorne knew something about her mother's disappearance. And whatever it was bad enough to make one of the most powerful men in New York City look like his entire world was crumbling. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Unknown number. Her hands trembled as she opened the text message. "The coffee shop, midnight, come alone. Tell no one. If you want the truth about your mother, this is your only chance." Margaret stared at the message, her heart racing. This was insane, dangerous. She should call the police right now, but the police had failed her mother 15 years ago. They'd failed her family. They'd called Sarah Chen a runaway, said she'd probably left voluntarily, started a new life somewhere. They'd stopped investigating after 6 months, filed the case away, forgotten about them. No, whatever the truth was, Margaret was going to find it herself, even if it destroyed her. The remaining 3 hours of Margaret's shift crawled by like years. Every time the kitchen doors swung open, her heart jumped, expecting Francois to fire her on the spot. But he never came. The other servers whispered and stared, but nobody asked questions. Not directly anyway. At 10:55, Margaret hung up her apron with shaking hands. She'd changed out of her uniform in the staff bathroom, pulling on jeans and a sweater. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale, frightened, young. Too young to be walking into whatever nightmare was waiting for her. "You sure about this?" Keisha asked, leaning against the bathroom doorframe. She'd watched Margaret change without saying a word until now. That man is dangerous rich, dangerous powerful, and you just embarrassed him in front of half of New York's elite. "I have to know," Margaret said simply. "She was my mother, was?" Keisha's eyebrow rose. "You think she's dead?" Margaret had asked herself that question 10,000 times over 15 years. "I don't know. But that necklace, Keisha, she never took it off, never. My grandfather gave it to her when I was born. She said it was her most precious possession besides me. She wouldn't have just left it behind. Unless she couldn't take it with her. Unless someone took it from her." The thought made Margaret's stomach turn, but she forced herself to face it. She'd spent 15 years in a fog of questions and maybes. Tonight, finally, she might get answers, even if those answers broke her. Text me every 15 minutes, Keisha said firmly. I don't care what this guy says about coming alone. I'm calling the cops if I don't hear from you. Margaret hugged her friend quickly, grateful beyond words. Then she stepped out into the cool October night. The coffee shop on the corner was a 24-hour place called Midnight Brew, ironically enough. At this hour, it was mostly empty. A few college students hunched over laptops, a homeless man nursing a cup in the corner. The barista looked half asleep behind the counter. Margaret ordered a black coffee she knew she wouldn't drink and chose a table in the back where she could see the door. Her phone read 11:58. At exactly midnight, Richard Hawthorne walked in. He'd changed clothes. Gone was the expensive suit. He wore dark jeans, a simple jacket, a baseball cap pulled low, trying to be inconspicuous, though his bearing, that particular way wealthy people carried themselves, gave him away. He spotted her immediately and walked over, sliding into the seat across from her without a word. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the gray stubble on his jaw. He looked older than his 58 years, tired, haunted. You came, Margaret said, her voice steadier than she felt. I shouldn't have. Hawthorne's hands were clasped on the table, knuckles white. This is incredibly dangerous. For both of us. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. Then tell me. Margaret leaned forward. Tell me what happened to my mother. Hawthorne closed his eyes. For a long moment he didn't speak. When he finally opened them again, Margaret saw something she hadn't expected. Genuine pain. I didn't kill her, he said quietly. I need you to know that first. I didn't kill Sarah Chen. The use of her mother's name, spoken aloud by this stranger, hit Margaret like a physical blow. But you know she's dead. I know she disappeared. I know why she disappeared. And I know it's my fault. Margaret's hands clenched into fists. Explain. Hawthorne glanced around the coffee shop, paranoia evident in every movement. Not here. There are too many eyes, too many cameras. I have a car outside. We'll drive. I'm not getting in a car with you. Margaret pulled out her phone. You can tell me here, or I can call the police right now. I already have your text message. I have witnesses who saw your reaction at the restaurant. I have. Fine. Hawthorne held up his hands in surrender. Fine, but keep your voice down, please. He took a deep breath, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. 15 years ago, I was expanding Hawthorne Industries into new markets. Real estate, primarily. We were buying up properties all over Chinatown, planning a massive redevelopment project. Luxury condos, shopping centers. It would have made hundreds of millions. Margaret's blood ran cold. She remembered that time, remembered the fear in her neighborhood, the protests, the families forced out of homes they'd owned for generations. Your mother, Hawthorne continued, his voice dropping even lower, was one of the community organizers fighting against us. She was fierce, passionate. She gathered evidence of irregularities in how we were acquiring properties, falsified documents, intimidation tactics, bribes to city officials. She was going to expose you, Margaret whispered. Hawthorne nodded slowly. She had everything, documents, recordings, enough to destroy my company and send several people to prison, including me, so you made her disappear. No. The word came out sharp and desperate. No, I swear to you, I never wanted that. I tried to reason with her. I offered her money. A lot of money. Enough to set her up for life, to secure your future. She refused. She said some things were more important than money. Margaret felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of this man. She was right. Some things are more important than money, like justice, like protecting people who can't protect themselves. I know that now, Hawthorne said, and the regret in his voice sounded genuine. But 15 years ago I was different, younger, more ruthless. Everything was about winning, about power, about building an empire. I didn't see the people I was crushing along the way. I only saw obstacles, and my mother was an obstacle. Yes. The admission seemed to cost him something, but I didn't hurt her. I want to be absolutely clear about that. I argued with her, yes. I tried to intimidate her, but I never laid a hand on her. Then who did? Margaret's voice rose despite her efforts to control it. The barista glanced over, curious. She forced herself to lower her volume. If you didn't hurt her, who did? Where is she? Hawthorne's jaw clenched. I had a business partner back then. Victor Reeves. He handled the more difficult aspects of our operations. The aspects I preferred not to know about too directly. When I told him about your mother's evidence about how she wouldn't back down, he said he would take care of it. Take care of it. The euphemism made Margaret want to scream. You mean kill her? I didn't know. Hawthorne's hands were shaking now. I swear to God I didn't know what he was planning. I thought he was going to offer her more money, maybe threaten legal action, scare her a little. But when I asked him about it later, when Sarah Chen stopped showing up to community meetings, stopped being a problem, he just smiled and said it was handled. And you didn't ask questions. Margaret's voice was filled with contempt. You just let it go. My mother disappeared. Her 8-year-old daughter was left alone with a grandfather who had a heart attack from the stress 6 months later. And you just went on with your life building your empire. The accusation hit home. Hawthorne flinched as if she'd slapped him. You're right. I'm a coward. I told myself I didn't know for certain, that maybe she'd just gotten scared and left town. But deep down I knew. I've known for 15 years, and I did nothing. The necklace, Margaret said, her throat tight. How did you get her necklace? Hawthorne reached into his jacket pocket slowly, as if the necklace might bite him. He placed it on the table between them. Under the coffee shop's harsh fluorescent lights, it looked smaller than Margaret remembered. More delicate. The silver was tarnished in places. Victor gave it to me, Hawthorne said quietly. 3 days after Sarah disappeared. He dropped it on my desk without a word. I picked it up and saw the inscription on the back. 3 Chinese characters. I had them translated. Sarah, I realized then what he'd done. What I'd allowed to happen. Margaret's hand hovered over the necklace, afraid to touch it. This had been against her mother's skin. Her mother had worn this the day she died. Because Margaret knew now, with certainty, that her mother was dead. Had been dead for 15 years. Why did you keep it? She asked. Why not throw it away? Destroy the evidence? Guilt, Hawthorne said simply. I couldn't throw it away. It felt like if I did, I'd be erasing her completely. At least this way, there was proof she existed. Proof of what I'd done. Or what I'd failed to do. You wore it to dinner. Margaret's voice was hollow. You had my mother's necklace sitting on the table at a 5-star restaurant, like it was just another piece of jewelry. I wear it sometimes, Hawthorne admitted. Under my shirt, usually. Where no one can see it. It's a reminder, a penance. Today I took it off because the chain was irritating my neck. I never imagined that you'd run into her daughter. Margaret finally picked up the necklace. It was heavier than she remembered. Or maybe she was just weaker now, crushed under the weight of the truth. You never imagined the universe would serve you up exactly what you deserved. She turned the pendant over with trembling fingers. There, engraved in delicate script, were the 3 characters. Chen Yalan, her mother's Chinese name. Sarah to Americans, but Yalan to her family. Beautiful orchid, where is she? Margaret's voice broke on the question. Where did he put her body? She deserves a burial. A real funeral. She deserves to be brought home. Hawthorne's silence was answer enough. You don't know, Margaret said flatly. Or you won't tell me. Victor Reeves is dead, Hawthorne said. Died 7 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Whatever he did, whatever he knew, he took it to the grave. I've spent years trying to find out. Hired private investigators. Searched property records, nothing. It's like she vanished into thin air. Except she didn't. Margaret clutched the necklace so hard the edges cut into her palm. Someone knows. Someone always knows. You said Reeves handled the dirty work. He must have had people working for him. Associates, someone who helped him. I've thought about that, Hawthorne admitted. But everyone from that time is either dead, disappeared, or won't talk. I've tried, Margaret. I know you don't believe me, but I have tried to find out what happened. Not hard enough. Margaret stood abruptly, shoving the necklace into her pocket. Not publicly. You haven't gone to the police. You haven't confessed. You've just sat in your mansion wearing my mother's necklace, feeling guilty. That's not justice. That's not even close. Hawthorne stood as well, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The few other customers in the coffee shop were definitely watching now, sensing drama. If I go to the police, I'll be arrested. My company will collapse. Thousands of people will lose their jobs. My family. Your family. Margaret's laugh was bitter and sharp. What about my family? I was 8 years old. My mother disappeared and nobody cared because we were just poor immigrants from Chinatown. The police barely investigated, and you knew the whole time. You could have given us closure. You could have helped us bury her properly. But you were too busy protecting your empire. You're right. Hawthorne's shoulders sagged. Everything you're saying is right. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to explain. I don't want explanations. I want my mother back. Margaret's voice cracked, and finally the tears came, hot and angry. I want to be 8 years old again, sitting in her lap while she tells me stories. I want to stop wondering every single day if she left because of something I did. If I was a bad daughter, if she didn't love me enough to stay. She loved you. Hawthorne's own eyes were wet now. I met her, remember? I tried to bribe her. You know what she said? She said she was fighting for your future, so you could grow up in a neighborhood that remembered its roots. So you'd know that your mother stood up for what was right, even when it was hard, even when powerful people tried to silence her. She loved you more than anything. The words should have comforted Margaret, but they only made the pain sharper. Her mother had died for principles, for justice, for the community. And Margaret had spent 15 years not knowing, waiting, hoping foolishly that maybe one day she'd come home. I'm going to the police, Margaret said, wiping her tears roughly with the back of her hand. Tonight, right now, I'm telling them everything you just told me. Hawthorne nodded slowly as if he'd expected this. I understand, but Margaret, please think about this carefully. I have no real proof. It's my word against nothing. Reeves is dead. There's no body, no crime scene. The necklace proves your mother owned it, but not how I got it. My lawyers will say I bought it at an estate sale, or that someone gave it to me as a gift. They'll destroy your credibility, make you look like you're after money. I don't care about money. I know, but they'll make it look like you do. They'll dig into your life, your finances, every mistake you've ever made, every parking ticket, every late rent payment. They'll paint you as a struggling waitress trying to extort a billionaire. And I won't be able to stop them. Once the lawyers get involved, it's out of my hands. Margaret stared at him, realization dawning cold and sick. You're threatening me. No. Hawthorne held up his hands. No, I'm warning you. There's a difference. I'm telling you what will happen because I know how this world works. The rich protect the rich. Always. Even if I wanted to confess, even if I stood up in court and told the truth, they'd find a way to bury it. Bury you. That's just reality. Then what am I supposed to do? Margaret's voice rose to a near shout. Just let you walk away? Pretend this conversation never happened? Go back to serving overpriced wine to people like you? No, Hawthorne said quietly. I'm saying we need a different approach. Evidence, real evidence. Something my lawyers can't explain away. Margaret narrowed her eyes. What kind of evidence? Files, documents. Reeves kept records of everything. He was paranoid, meticulous. When he died, his estate was liquidated. His personal effects were divided among his children. But there's a storage unit in Queens, Unit 217. I've had people watch it for years, but I could never access it without raising suspicions. Why are you telling me this, Hawthorne? Met her eyes, and for the first time she saw something genuine there. Not manipulation, not calculation, just exhaustion and guilt. Because I'm tired, Margaret. I'm 58 years old and I'm tired of carrying this. Maybe you running into me tonight wasn't an accident. Maybe it was time for the truth to come out. So Margaret studied Hawthorne's face, searching for the lie, the trap. But all she saw was a broken man who'd spent 15 years running from his conscience. If you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trick, it's not. Hawthorne pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed her the screen. An address in Queens. A combination code. That's the storage unit. Reeves's daughter pays the fee automatically every month. She's never been inside, as far as I know. Doesn't even know what's in there. Her father told her it was business records that needed to be kept for legal reasons. How do you know all this? I've made it my business to know. Hawthorne pocketed his phone. After Reeves died, I became obsessed with finding out what happened. Not obsessed enough to actually do the right thing, apparently, but obsessed enough to gather information. To watch, to wait, for what? Margaret asked. What were you waiting for? Hawthorne was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Permission, maybe. Or courage. Or someone to force my hand. He looked at her directly. Maybe I was waiting for you. The coffee shop door chimed as a group of late-night customers entered, laughing loudly. The spell between Margaret and Hawthorne broke. They both stepped back, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. How many witnesses surrounded them? I need to think about this, Margaret said, though her mind was already racing ahead. A storage unit full of evidence, records, maybe even information about where her mother's body was hidden. This could be dangerous. If what you're saying is true, if Reeves was willing to kill my mother to protect your business deal, whoever helped him might still be out there. They are, Hawthorne confirmed grimly. Some of them work for me now. I can't even be sure who knows what. That's why I've been so careful all these years. Why I've never pushed too hard for answers. The people involved, they're not the type to leave loose ends. Then why help me now? Why give me this information? Hawthorne's hand went to his chest, to where the necklace usually hung hidden beneath his shirt. Because tonight, when you pointed at that necklace, when you said it belonged to your mother, I saw Sarah's face. Really saw it for the first time in 15 years. And I saw yours. You look like her, you know. Same eyes, same determination. She stood in my office and told me she'd rather die than let me destroy her community. He paused, his voice breaking slightly, and I let her die. I didn't pull the trigger, didn't give the order directly, but I let it happen. I've told myself for 15 years that I didn't know, that Reeves acted on his own, but that's a lie. I knew what kind of man he was. I knew what he was capable of. And I looked the other way. Margaret felt a strange mixture of emotions. Anger, yes. Hatred even. But also something unexpected, pity. This man had everything money could buy, and he was completely miserable. Haunted by a ghost he'd helped create. If I do this, Margaret said slowly, if I go to that storage unit and find evidence, you'll testify. You'll tell the police everything you just told me. You will face the consequences. Yes. The word came without hesitation. I'll do whatever you need. I'll give a full confession. I'll name everyone involved that I know about. I'll accept whatever punishment comes. He laughed, a hollow sound. Maybe I'll finally sleep through the night. Margaret pulled out her phone and texted Keisha. Still alive. Situation complicated. We'll explain tomorrow. Then she looked back at Hawthorne. Give me your number. They exchanged information in silence. The surreal nature of the moment wasn't lost on Margaret. Hours ago, this man had been just another wealthy customer. Now he was confessing to conspiracy in her mother's murder, making deals in a coffee shop at 12:30 in the morning. One more thing, Margaret said as Hawthorne turned to leave. Your wife. You said the necklace belonged to your late wife. Is that true, or was that a lie? Hawthorne stopped, his back to her. My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. In her final weeks, she was delirious from the pain medication. She kept talking about a Chinese woman, asking for forgiveness. I never told her about Sarah, about what happened, but somehow she knew. Somehow she'd always known. He turned back, his face ashen. She died begging a ghost for forgiveness. That's when I knew I couldn't run from this anymore. He left without another word, disappearing into the October night. Margaret sat back down, her legs suddenly too weak to support her. The necklace felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. Around her, the coffee shop continued its late-night rhythm. Students typing, the homeless man shuffling toward the bathroom, the barista yawning. Normal life, continuing as if Margaret's entire world hadn't just shifted on its axis. She pulled out the necklace and stared at it under the light. Her mother's name etched in silver. How many times had 8-year-old Margaret traced these characters with her finger, asking her mother what they meant? Beautiful Orchid, a name full of hope and grace. Her phone buzzed. Keisha. Girl, you better call me the second you're safe. I'm losing my mind here. Margaret typed back, I'm okay. Coming home soon. You won't believe what I just learned, but was she okay? She had a confession from a billionaire, an address to a storage unit that might contain evidence. and absolutely no idea what to do next. Going to the police seemed obvious, but Hawthorne's warning echoed in her mind. Rich people protected rich people. She'd seen it her whole life. Justice wasn't blind. It had 20/20 vision when it came to seeing dollar signs. Another text, this time from an unknown number. Hawthorne, be careful. Trust no one. Some of the people involved have connections everywhere, including the police. Margaret's blood ran cold. She hadn't thought about that. What if she went to the police and ended up talking to someone on Hawthorne's payroll? Or worse, someone who'd been involved in her mother's murder? She needed help, real help. Someone she could trust absolutely. Her mind went to James Wu, her mother's old friend. He'd been part of the community organizing back then, fought alongside her mother against the development project. After her mother disappeared, James had tried to keep the fight going, but without Sarah Chen's leadership and evidence, the movement had crumbled. Hawthorne Industries had built their luxury condos. Chinatown had changed forever. James ran a small law practice now, mostly helping immigrants with documentation and housing disputes. Margaret hadn't seen him in years, but she knew he'd never forgotten her mother. Every year on the anniversary of Sarah's disappearance, he sent Margaret's grandfather a card. After her grandfather died, he'd sent them to Margaret instead. She looked at her phone. 1:15 in the morning. Too late to call, but this couldn't wait until morning. People who made other people disappear didn't work on a 9-to-5 schedule. Margaret dialed James's number, her heart pounding. He answered on the fourth ring, voice thick with sleep. Hello, Mr. Wu? It's Margaret Chen, Sarah Chen's daughter. I'm so sorry to call so late, but I found something. About my mother. About what happened to her? There was a long pause. Then James's voice came back, suddenly wide awake and sharp. Where are you right now, Margaret? Midnight Brew, the coffee shop on West 42nd. Stay there. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm 20 minutes away. He paused. Margaret, does anyone else know what you found? She thought about Hawthorne disappearing into the night with his guilt and his promises. Yes, the person responsible. Jesus, James's voice was tense. Listen to me carefully. Go to the bathroom. Lock yourself in a stall. Don't come out until I text you that I'm there. Do you understand? You're scaring me. Good, you should be scared. If you really found out what happened to your mother, if someone talked, then you're in danger. Real danger. These people, Margaret, they don't leave witnesses. The line went dead. Margaret sat frozen for a moment, James's words sinking in. Then she stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her untouched coffee. She walked quickly to the bathroom, locked herself in the far stall, and sat on the closed toilet lid with her knees pulled to her chest. Her mother's necklace clutched tight in her fist, waiting. The bathroom was small, dingy, lit by a flickering fluorescent light that made everything look sickly and surreal. Margaret could hear the muffled sounds of the coffee shop through the door. Laughter, the hiss of the espresso machine. Normal sounds that felt like they belonged to a different universe. She pulled out her phone. 1:23. James said 20 minutes. She opened her text thread with Keisha and typed, If anything happens to me, Richard Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne Industries, knows what happened to my mom. Storage unit in Queens, Unit 217. She included the address, then added, Don't go there alone. Get police you trust. She hit send, then immediately regretted it. Was she being paranoid, dramatic? But James's warning had been clear. These people don't leave witnesses. And her mother had been a witness. Had evidence. Had refused to be silenced. And she'd vanished. Margaret looked at the necklace again, this tarnished piece of silver that had survived 15 years when her mother hadn't. She fastened it around her own neck. It felt right there, like reclaiming something stolen. Her phone buzzed. Hawthorne, I've been thinking. You should leave town. Tonight, I'll wire you money. It's enough to disappear, start over somewhere safe. Margaret stared at the message. Was he genuinely concerned for her safety? Or was he trying to make her disappear too? Tie up the loose end his confession had created. She typed back, I'm not running. I'm not my mother. I'm finishing what she started. 3 dots appeared showing he was typing. Then they disappeared. No response came, another buzz. James this time, I'm here. Blue Honda in front. Come out the back exit if there is one. Margaret unlocked the stall carefully, listening. The bathroom was still empty. She cracked open the door and peered into the coffee shop. The layout was simple, open. She could see the front entrance clearly. And standing just outside, she could see two men in dark jackets. They weren't doing anything obvious, just standing, waiting. But something about their posture, their awareness, made her skin crawl. Her instincts screamed danger. Margaret pulled back and locked the bathroom door from the inside. Her fingers were shaking as she texted James. Two men outside. Front entrance. Think they're watching for me. The response was immediate. Back exit? Don't know, looking. She surveyed the tiny bathroom. One small window above the sink painted shut probably decades ago. But it was her only option. Margaret climbed onto the sink, nearly slipping on the wet porcelain. She pushed at the window frame. Stuck solid, come on, she whispered desperately, pushing harder. The frame groaned but didn't budge. Someone tried the bathroom door handle, once, twice, then a heavy knock. Occupied, Margaret called out, trying to keep her voice steady. No response. But she heard footsteps moving away. Margaret braced her feet and shoved at the window with both hands. Something cracked, paint flaking away. She pushed again, harder, and suddenly the window swung open. Cold October air rushed in, carrying the smell of garbage and exhaust. The window was small, barely large enough for her to fit through, but she didn't have a choice. Margaret grabbed the frame and pulled herself up, squeezing through the opening. Her shirt caught on something sharp, tearing. Her hip scraped against the frame hard enough to make her gasp. Then she was through, half falling into the narrow alley behind the coffee shop. She landed hard on her hands and knees in something wet and disgusting. Didn't matter. She was out. Margaret ran toward the street, her phone already out. I'm in the alley. East side of building. A blue Honda squealed around the corner seconds later. The passenger door flew open. Get in. Margaret dove into the car. James hit the gas before she'd even closed the door properly. She caught a glimpse in the side mirror. Two men in dark jackets bursting out of the coffee shop's front entrance, looking around frantically. Get down, James ordered. Margaret slid low in her seat as they took a hard right, tires squealing. They drove in silence for several minutes, James taking random turns, clearly checking for a tail. Finally, he seemed satisfied and relaxed slightly. You okay? He asked, glancing at her. Margaret realized she was shaking. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Those men were probably there to scare you, maybe grab you. Ask questions. James's jaw was tight. Tell me everything, Margaret. From the beginning. Margaret told him everything. The dinner service, the necklace, Hawthorne's terror and his confession, the storage unit in Queens, the warning about police corruption. James listened without interrupting, his hands steady on the wheel as he navigated through late-night Manhattan traffic. When she finished, James was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. Richard Hawthorne. I should have known. Your mother was getting close to something big right before she disappeared. She told me she had evidence that would bring down the entire operation. Names, dates, payments. She said it went higher than we thought, all the way to city planning, maybe even the mayor's office. Did she tell you where she kept the evidence? No, she said it was safer if I didn't know. In case something happened to her. His voice broke slightly. I thought she was being paranoid. I told her she was watching too many movies. And then 3 days later, she was gone. You tried to find her. I tried everything. I filed missing persons reports. I hired a private investigator with money I didn't have. I went to every police precinct, every hospital, every morgue in the 5 boroughs. Nothing. It was like she'd evaporated. James's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Eventually, I had to accept that she was gone. That whoever took her was powerful enough to erase her completely. Hawthorne says it was his partner, Victor Reeves. He's dead now. Reeves, James's voice turned dark. Yeah, I remember him. He came to one of our community meetings once. Smiled like a shark while he threatened us. Said accidents happen in construction zones. Said it would be a shame if someone got hurt. He glanced at Margaret. Your mother threw him out personally. Told him we weren't afraid of corporate thugs. She should have been afraid, Margaret whispered. No. James's voice was firm. She was right to stand up. She was right to fight. What happened to her wasn't her fault. It was their fault. The people who valued profit over human lives. Don't you dare dishonor her memory by wishing she'd been a coward. The words hit Margaret hard. He was right. Her mother had died fighting for what was right. That was something to be proud of, not ashamed of. Where are we going? Margaret asked, realizing they were heading east toward Queens, the storage unit. James's expression was determined. If that evidence still exists, we need it. Tonight, before Hawthorne changes his mind or whoever sent those men figures out where we're headed. James, it's dangerous. Hawthorne said, I know what Hawthorne said. I also know that evidence has been sitting in that unit for 7 years since Reeves died. If it was going to be destroyed, it would have been destroyed already. Reeves's daughter doesn't know what she has. Which means we have a window. A small one, Margaret's phone buzzed. Keisha, OMG, are you serious right now? I'm calling the police. Margaret quickly typed back. No, don't trust police yet. Some might be involved. I'm with James Wu, my mom's old friend. He's a lawyer. We're safe, I promise. Another message, this time from Hawthorne. The men at the coffee shop weren't mine. I don't know who sent them. Please be careful. I'm starting to think I wasn't the only one who knew what Reeves did. Margaret showed the message to James. His jaw tightened. That's not comforting. No, Margaret agreed. It's not. They drove in tense silence through the Midtown Tunnel, emerging into Queens. The streets here were quieter, darker. Industrial buildings mixed with residential areas. James pulled up the address on his phone's GPS. It's about 10 minutes from here, he said. Margaret, when we get there, you stay in the car. Let me go in first. If anything seems wrong, I'm coming with you. Margaret's voice left no room for argument. This is my mother. Her evidence. Her fight. I'm not sitting in a car while you take all the risk. James looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Margaret's expression stopped him. He sighed. You look just like her, you know. That exact same stubborn look? Good, Margaret said. Because I'm about to be just as stubborn as she was. The storage facility appeared ahead, a sprawling complex of identical units behind a chain-link fence. A sign reading, Queens Storage Solutions 24-hour access flickered in the darkness. James pulled into the parking lot and killed the engine. For a moment, they both sat there, staring at the building. Somewhere inside was the truth. The evidence that had cost Sarah Chen her life. The proof that could finally bring her killers to justice. Ready? James asked quietly. Margaret touched the necklace at her throat. Let's finish what my mother started. They approached the facility's entrance, where a bored security guard sat behind bulletproof glass, watching a small television. James stepped forward confidently. Evening. We're here to access Unit 217. The guard barely looked up. Code? James read off the numbers Hawthorne had provided. The guard punched them into his computer, nodded, and buzzed them through. No questions. No ID check. Margaret realized that for all the security theater, these places relied on codes, not verification. Anyone with the right numbers could access anything. The hallway stretched before them, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Their footsteps echoed off concrete walls. Unit numbers ticked by, 203, 209, 215, 217. Margaret's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. James entered the code into the electronic lock. There was a beep and the light turned green. He looked at Margaret one last time. Last chance to wait outside. Open it, she said. James lifted the rolling door. It rose with a metallic screech that seemed impossibly loud in the quiet hallway. And there, revealed under the harsh overhead light, was Victor Reeves's legacy. Boxes. Dozens of them. Carefully labeled and organized. File cabinets lined one wall. A desk sat in the corner with a computer monitor covered in dust. Jesus. James breathed. It's all here. They stepped inside. Margaret moved to the nearest box and opened it. Manila folders, each one meticulously labeled. Bank statements. Wire transfers. Property deeds. She pulled out a folder at random and flipped it open. Her hands started shaking. James, look at this. It was a payment receipt. $50,000 to a Detective Marcus Chen, NYPD. The memo line read, Consultation Services. The date was 2 weeks before her mother disappeared. They bought the police, Margaret whispered. That's why the investigation went nowhere. They had someone inside. James was already pulling out more files, spreading them across the dusty desk. It's worse than that, look. payments to city council members, the deputy mayor, building inspectors, judges. His face was pale. This wasn't just a business deal gone wrong. This was systematic corruption at every level. Margaret moved deeper into the unit, opening more boxes. And then she found it. A box labeled simply, SC Problem, Sarah Chen. Her mother reduced to a problem to be solved. With trembling hands, Margaret opened the box. Inside were photos, surveillance photos of her mother. At community meetings, walking Margaret to school, shopping in Chinatown, someone had been watching her, documenting her movements. Beneath the photos were documents in her mother's handwriting, copies of the very evidence she'd been gathering. Everything that was in the storage unit, her mother had found first. She'd been so close to exposing them all, and at the bottom of the box, a single piece of paper, a handwritten note in different handwriting. Victor Reeves's handwriting, Margaret assumed. It read simply, handled, October 15th, Riverside disposal. No recovery possible, October 15th. The day her mother disappeared. Riverside disposal. Margaret felt sick. They'd thrown her mother in the river. Like garbage. Like she was nothing. Margaret, James's voice was urgent. We need to photograph everything. Document it all. Then we get out of here and… The lights went out, complete darkness. Margaret froze, her heart stopping. Then James's hand found her arm. Don't move, he whispered. Someone cut the power. In the darkness, Margaret heard footsteps. Multiple sets. Coming closer, James, she breathed. We need to… The unit door slammed shut with a deafening bang. They were trapped. A voice came from the darkness outside, cold, professional. We know you're in there. Come out slowly with your hands visible. No one needs to get hurt tonight. James pulled Margaret close, his whisper barely audible. The back wall. These units share walls. If we can break through… A gunshot shattered the lock on the door. Margaret screamed. The door rolled up, and flashlight beams cut through the darkness, blinding them. Margaret grabbed the box with her mother's evidence and held it tight. Whatever happened next, this truth wasn't staying buried anymore. If you're still reading, thank you for being here. This story was inspired by real cases of corruption and the families who never stopped seeking justice. Please like this video if you want to see part 2, where Margaret escapes and exposes everyone involved. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. And comment below, what would you do in Margaret's situation? Would you risk everything for the truth? Or would you take Hawthorne's money and disappear? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.